I recently moved into an unfurnished apartment, and Facebook Marketplace became my go-to for furnishing on a budget. I've been through dozens of listings, bargaining and meeting up with sellers in coffee shops and busy parking lots. It was routine until I stumbled upon a listing for a couch in perfect condition, exactly what my living room was missing. The seller, Mark, suggested we finalize the deal at his place, since he was in the middle of moving and couldn't transport the couch. Despite the alarm bells ringing in my head about going to a stranger's house, the promise of a good deal made me override my initial reluctance. After I was done with my shift, I arrived at Mark's house at around 8 p.m. It stood out, extremely old but also massive. It looked like it could have been a mansion a few decades ago. I messaged Mark, "I'm here." I felt uneasy, yet turning back over a gut feeling seemed silly over a piece of furniture. The front door was slightly open, as Mark said it would be. I walked up the front steps and pushed it open. Of course, to make me feel even worse, it made a long, drawn-out creaking sound. Only a lamp was on down the hallway, with all of the other lights turned off. "Hello? Mark?" I called out, only to be met with silence. The lack of any response was concerning, but I wasn't about to leave after I came this far. When I reached the basement door, it was wide open. I peeked down the steps, but it was entirely dark down below. That's when the alarm bells went off in my head. "Mark, are you down there?" The question felt stupid the moment it left my lips, and I didn't get any response. That's when I first heard it. A soft shuffle, like footsteps on concrete from the basement below. My mind raced with every possible explanation, none good. The footsteps grew louder, a clear signal that someone was indeed down there, waiting. The thought of going down there into that darkness was unbearable. Another message from Mark appeared on my phone, way too casual. "Come on down, the couch is just to the right," he said. Why didn't he just yell that out to me instead? Every instinct screamed that now was my time to get out of there. I didn't respond to his text. Instead, I turned to leave, slowly walking back not to draw any attention. By the time I was at the front door, I heard footsteps coming from the basement, but I didn't stay any longer to see what was about to happen. Once outside, I immediately drove away with the briefest glance in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see Mark or someone else emerging from the shadows of the house. I called the police the moment I was safe, saying everything that happened and how it could have been a potential robbery or mugging. The police later reported that the house had been empty for months, with no sign of Mark. The listing, along with Mark's profile, vanished from Facebook Marketplace when I went back online that same night. That night's events left me shaken. Now I stick to public daylight deals. I'm always on high alert. I'm 27, and I'm fairly experienced with Facebook Marketplace, mainly for getting rid of old stuff I no longer need for some quick cash. My transactions had always been straightforward, so I never thought twice about meeting a buyer in person. That changed when I listed my DSLR camera, and a buyer named Sarah reached out. She was eager to buy it for her photography class. After a few messages back and forth, she recommended meeting at a local park to make the exchange. She mentioned she worked late hours, and we'd have to meet at night. Since the park was a midpoint for us both, I agreed, thinking the public setting was safe enough, even after dark. I arrived at the park around 9 p.m. It was quieter and darker than I anticipated, with just a few street lamps lighting up the walkways. I messaged Sarah to let her know where I was standing, near the park's central playground, a spot I figured was open and somewhat well lit. Minutes ticked by, and there was no sign of Sarah. The park felt more isolated as the occasional sounds of the city faded into the background. I sent another message, asking if she was close, but her response was immediate. "We'll be there in a few minutes, just parking my car," she said. That's when I realized the situation might not be as safe as I thought. The park's quietness became unnerving. I scanned the area, trying to spot her, but instead, my eyes caught something horrifying. A figure stood a good 30 feet away, partially hidden behind the tree. It wasn't Sarah, it was a man, just standing there, staring in my direction. He had on a black hoodie with gray sweatpants, with long, greasy black hair. Feeling a rush of anxiety, I quickly thought of an excuse to leave without drawing attention. I texted Sarah, "Sorry, need to run to the restroom real quick. Be right back." Not waiting for a reply, I turned and walked quickly towards the park's exit, constantly aware of how exposed my back was as I moved. Reaching my car felt like an eternity, but I managed to get inside and lock the doors without looking back. That's when curiosity overcame fear, and I glanced out my window. The man by the tree was now moving, but not towards the exit. He was walking deeper into the park. I was just glad he wasn't following me and decided to book it out of there as fast as possible. Driving away, I called the police, describing the encounter and the man's location in the park. The operator was calm, collecting all the details and assuring me they'd investigate. Even though nothing happened, the situation obviously felt weird. The next day, Sarah messaged me, apologizing for missing the meetup, claiming she got the nights mixed up. I wasn't buying it at all though, and I decided to block her account. A few days later, one of our local news stations reported an incident in the same park, a mugging late at night. The description of the suspect sent chills down my spine. It matched the man I saw perfectly. Black hoodie and sweatpants. I immediately knew that he must have done this, as it happened on the exact same night I was there. I went to report his account on Facebook, but it had already been deleted. Since then, I've sworn off late night meetups, regardless of the item or the buyer's story. That night in the park was a lesson in trusting my gut and recognizing when a situation feels off. Selling online is convenient, but it's not worth compromising your safety. I've used Facebook Marketplace a lot to sell old stuff I don't need anymore. I've sold all kinds of things without any problems, from old tech to furniture. But everything changed when I decided to sell an old mirror that's been in my family for a long time. Because the mirror was big and fragile, I told potential buyers that they would need to come to my house to get it. That's when someone named Derek got in touch. He apparently lived only 30 minutes away and had no issue with the price or picking it up from my place. Derek and I arranged for him to come by the following Saturday afternoon. I spent the morning preparing the mirror for sale, feeling bad that I was getting rid of something that had been in my family for so long. About 10 minutes before our agreed time, Derek messaged me, "Running a bit late, see you soon." I felt slightly uneasy about a stranger coming to my house, but this is how I always feel when I sell stuff online, so I didn't really think twice about it. It was now around 9 p.m. I sat in the living room waiting for Derek. Just then, my phone buzzed. Derek said he was here. I got up and walked to the window, taking a peek outside, but I couldn't see any car in my driveway. Confused, I messaged back, "Can't see you. Are you sure you're at the right place?" He responded immediately, "At your door, let me in." Chills ran down my spine. I hadn't heard the doorbell, nor have I seen anyone approach. I looked through my door's peephole but saw no sign of Derek. Cautiously, I opened the front door and took a step outside. The message made no sense, and I was just standing there confused for a couple of seconds. Then, out of nowhere, I heard a soft tapping coming from the side gate leading to the backyard. At this point, I was extremely scared, but there was a possible explanation. Derek could have somehow mistaken the instructions and went to the gate that leads to my back door. It made sense in my head at the time. I slowly walked over to the gate. Opening it, I walked into the backyard, but it was empty, surrounded by darkness. Then, my phone buzzed again. "I see you. Come back to the front." That's when my heart sunk into my chest. I immediately ran to the back door and locked myself inside my house. Derek's messages continued, each one more unsettling. "Nice house you have," followed by, "Why'd you go inside?" It was as if he was watching me, but I didn't know from where. I called the police, explaining the situation with my voice shaking. They advised me to stay indoors and keep the doors locked. As I waited, I checked the messages again, trying to piece together Derek's game. That's when I noticed it. The car parked across the street with its lights off. I couldn't get a good enough read of its plates, but I was almost certain that had to have been Derek. I told the police this, but they advised me to stay inside for my own safety. A few minutes later, the police finally arrived. When I was letting the officers inside, I saw that the car across the street was gone. Of course, Derek's account was deleted too. They thought it might have just been someone's idea of a sick joke. I'm pretty certain it was just some kids messing around. I'll never know for certain though, if it was that or something much darker.